Hey guys, super glad to be chatting with you guys again this week. I have another story to tell you, but I also have something else that we need to get out of the way first, and that is that, yes, I no longer have hair. So let's all take a minute and laugh at me about that. Okay, awesome. Great laughing, guys. Let's jump in. So, I have a story this week about one of the first times I ever ate at a sushi restaurant. So I got my sushi. All my rolls are on the plate, and then there's a little cup with some soy sauce, and then there's this little green stuff, this kind of mushy green stuff. Now, like I said, this was one of my first times at a sushi restaurant. I had been to Mexican restaurants though, and that green stuff looked a lot like guacamole. And I love guacamole. So I take my fork, I pick up this whole fork full of what I think is guacamole, and I stick it in my mouth. And then something horrible happened. I realized that was not guacamole, that was wasabi. And wasabi is this really kind of like aromatically spicy Japanese, it's kind of like a pea, but it's so spicy. It like fills up your nasal passages and it's just really intense. So it was not a very fun experience for me. And I know lots of people have had similar experiences where, they pick up a what they think is a chocolate chip cookie and then they take a bite out of it only to realize that it's oatmeal raisin, right? So it's kind of a common experience, and it's what we're going to be talking about with our series this week called In the Middle. And we'll be moving on from talking about loss last week to talking about what it's like to be in the middle of disappointment. We'll be asking the question, is it possible to find joy in the midst of disappointment? So loss, we said, was when we have something and then we no longer have that thing, okay? But disappointment is a little bit different. Disappointment is when we expect something, but we don't get it. Okay, we expect to get something, but we don't get it. Or maybe we expect something and we get something different, right? So some examples. Maybe we wanted to stay in our hometown for all of our schooling years, but one of our parents got a new job and we ended up having to move. We were expecting to stay there forever, but we had to move. Maybe we expected to get a particular part in a play that we auditioned for, and we end up getting a different part or no part at all. Or maybe we expect to start on a football or a basketball or a volleyball team, and we end up coming in off the bench. Or we expect to be on varsity and we end up on JV, right? Or maybe we have a crush on somebody and we want that person to like us back in the same way, but they just want to be friends, right? Or maybe we expect that our parents will always be there for us, always be together, and then that turns out not to be true. Or here's another one. Maybe we pray for something for a really long time and we thoroughly expect God to give that thing to us, but for whatever reason, he doesn't, right? That is disappointment. We expect something, we desire something, but we don't get it. Okay, that's disappointment. And lots of times that leads to negative feelings, obviously, but those negative feelings of disappointment completely overwhelm us and we become bitter. Here are some phrases maybe somebody who's feeling bitter would say. Ugh. If I can't have that part, I don't even want to be in this stupid play anymore, right? I'm done with this sport, right? My parents, they just don't care about my feelings, right? Yeah, you just want to be friends? Well, okay, I'll make us enemies, right? God, you must either not hear me or not care about me. I'm over religion. That's bitterness. But you see, it's really bitterness that makes joy impossible. Just being disappointed, that doesn't make joy impossible. You can be disappointed, but also be able to find joy. So, how's this possible? We'll talk about a few things, okay? Number one, joy is not based on our circumstances. See, disappointment refers to circumstances, right? We get disappointed because something happens. Okay? We get disappointed because something happens, right? You don't just feel disappointed for no reason, right? Your parents don't say, "Hey, how are you feeling today?" "Ah, I'm really disappointed." "Really? Why?" "Oh, no reason. Just disappointed," right? No, you're disappointed because something happened, because your circumstances change, right? But joy can happen in all circumstances, right? James 1, 2 through 4 says this: "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Okay? So even when you're facing trials, difficult situations, right? The Bible tells us we can consider that joy. Okay? So we know joy is not based on our circumstances. We can be disappointed with our circumstances, but still have joy. Secondly, we see that joy is something we can choose, and it may be kind of a struggle to choose that. Okay? Philippians 4:4, Paul gives the command to rejoice, right? And then if you look at the verse, he says it again, rejoice. Again, I will say it, rejoice. So he gives this command for us to rejoice, for us to be joyful, right? But he wouldn't give us a command if we didn't have any sort of control over it, right? You can't give somebody the command like, "Hey, make sure that your heart pumps blood to all of your body," right? Because you can't control that your heart is pumping blood, right? So you'd only give a command when you can control something. And Paul gives the command to rejoice. So that must mean that we can control, or we have some sort of influence over whether or not we're feeling joy, right? It's not just a matter of how we happen to be feeling, what mood we happen to be in, right? Joy is something we can choose, and maybe it's tough to do so. Third, we see that joy looks for God's good purposes, okay? We know that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, right? That's in Romans, okay? So, if he works everything for our good, that means even when we're in circumstances that disappoint us, we should expect that there's something good in them, that God can bring good about those circumstances, okay? I've learned to like wasabi, even though I was disappointed when it wasn't guacamole, right? I've learned to like oatmeal raisin cookies, right? And you may find that there are certain parts of the circumstances that disappoint you that you actually learn to enjoy, that you actually appreciate later on in life. And there may be parts of it that, 50 years later, you're still like, I don't get it, and you may not get it until, you're with Jesus in the afterlife. But there may be parts that you do learn, that you learn to enjoy or you learn to appreciate. And then finally, we see that joy is a state of being in relationship with God. And this is what really separates joy from everything else. This is what gives us the ability to be joyful even when we're disappointed. So Galatians 5:22 through 23 lists the fruit of the Spirit. It says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Okay? So what that's saying is that if you are living in relationship with God, if you're living in the Spirit of God, right, you will see these sorts of things in your life. And one of those is joy. Okay? So that shows us if we're in relationship with God, joy will come. Joy is a condition of being in relationship with God. Okay? And that's something that no matter our circumstances, even when something disappoints us, that cannot change. Right? We will always be with God. We will always have God. Now, it's 100% okay to feel disappointed. It's wonderful and necessary for us to let God know when we're feeling disappointed, to say, God, I really wanted this and I got this, and right now that stinks, right? It's okay to say that, okay? But it's not good for our disappointment to steal away our joy. And that's because joy is the sense of security, peace, and happiness that we get from knowing that regardless of our circumstances, nothing can pull us away from the riches of God's love and the riches of being in his family. Okay? So that's why I encourage you with. You guys may be met with disappointment in various ways throughout your life, now and later on. Okay? But nothing can steal away your joy. So I want to give you guys a quick practical way to practice being joyful, okay? And it involves getting outside, all right? So I want you guys to spend some time outside. It could be on a walk, could be on a bike ride. It could just be going out into the grass, laying down a blanket, and just chilling, okay? But I want you to spend the time outdoors just letting your mind wander, and let your mind wander to things that you're grateful for, okay? Practicing gratefulness and practicing telling God what we're grateful for can help us to see joy even in disappointing circumstances, to find our joy, okay? So just go outside, let your mind wander to things that you're thankful for, okay? It's a pretty easy practice, but I think it can help you guys find joy, okay? So that's my big challenge for you guys this week, all right? Let me leave you with these words from John 16:22. So also, you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. See you guys.